for hanging in there with me.
Actually, I brought this out here to tell you a little bit about how microwaves have changed education, at least in my classroom. You see, I've been a middle school teacher for 13 years now, and I can see your faces. Every time I tell someone that, they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Please have a seat. You must be tired." So I understand that, but I truly love this age group. It's a time when they're developing their own selves and they're finding out who they are. And I love being part of that journey. I'm also an improvisational actor. And if you're not sure what that means, it's basically the idea that we get on stage and we get a suggestion from the audience. And from that suggestion, we create a comedy scene, or just a beautiful scene, or just a scene if we're not so lucky. But I love improvisational comedy because I have to feed off the audience, and we have a shared experience together. But how do I change my classroom? So I was looking around my room and I noticed those turn-in boxes. You know, the little plastic boxes you put your paper in and the teacher takes it out. I realized that it was a transition between their work to me. This box represented that, a transaction between student and teacher, where I was the judge and they were going to be the one I judged. That wasn't right. So I realized, maybe I make that box something different. I went around town and I found 4 microwaves. Because I have 4 classes. And I stacked them together on a table. And when my kids came in, they gave a look. And they were like, "Are we having Hot Pockets?" Right? Because you know kids. And I said, "No, that's your turn-in boxes. And you will turn your papers right in here." I thought I was wacky. I thought it was out of my mind. But I tell you, they loved it. This interaction, we now have a shared experience with a microwave. As a matter of fact, one of the microwaves, I couldn't bring it in here, it's like 800 pounds, came from the 80s, and it had a bell that you could ding. And one of the students rang that bell, ding, and it echoed through the classroom, and I saw their eyes light up. They were releasing what we call dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It regulates mood, it regulates concentration, and learning. 3 things a teacher wants a student to do. It's also the 3 things they don't want a student to do out of control. So how do I regulate this dopamine? Improvisation. So how does improvisation work in the classroom? Well, I have about 5 guidelines I work with. There are a lot more, but there are things to keep in mind when teaching and using improvisation. Number 1, make mistakes. Improvisation is about mistakes. If I'm on stage with my acting partner here and I make a mistake, I have 100% confidence they're not going to point at me and laugh. They're going to lift me up and make my mistake even better. Because they're going to create a scene from mistakes. And we get to the point. So maybe my French accent all of a sudden turns into a Jamaican accent, which happens often. My partner will say, "Oh my gosh, you are that Jamaican spy I thought you were." And we go, and we now have a new scene. What's the same in the classroom? I don't want to be the guy saying you're wrong. I want to be the guy that says, "Hey, that was a really good idea, though nowhere near what we were talking about." And I like that. That mistake is great. We need to encourage these kids to take those kinds of risks, those academic risks. Number 2 is a big tenet for improvisation. We go by the theory of yes and. When I'm on stage and my partner gives me what we call a gift is a suggestion that I can work with. "Hey, let's go to the moon." That's my gift. Now we're going to the moon. And I'm going to say, "Yes, let's go to the moon." But I'm going to give an and back. I'm going to give them another gift back. "And I would like to try out my new monkey's spacesuit." And we now have a new scene, and we're giving gifts back and forth. And that's how yes and works. Teaching students a yes and mindset is really important. Or being a teacher who has a yes and mindset. So if the answer is wrong, yeah, I do understand where you're coming from. I understand what your thinking is. And I'd like to make a suggestion about how we can look at it this way too. validating what they're doing. The next one is constraint. Now, we think about constraint as rules that we cannot break, and it keeps us trapped. But in improvisation, constraint is the key to creativity. We give ourselves a lot of games to play within because we can be highly creative within that. If you give a creative person no rules, they don't produce much. They have to work within these constraints. And so we need to teach the students that constraint is something that allows you to be highly creative. A rule of treat your peers nicely, or, do your work, or be polite in the classroom, listen to what they have to say. Those aren't constraints, but those are ways we can have a lot of fun within them, but still stay within those rules. The next one, number 4, be present. It's so easy, right? Let's be present. I don't know how many of you are present right now. I've had 13 years of looking at eyes and going, no, you're not present. All right. However, being present in improvisation is key. I don't know what's going to be next. I don't have a script. So when my partner gives me a gift, I've got to react in real time. I have to let them know I'm thinking of them, and I'm not thinking ahead, and I'm not thinking in the past. I'm thinking now. What are we going to create now? And that's the same with teachers and students. Teachers often answer over 1,000 questions a day. I want to be present with them. I interact with 120 students a day. If I'm not present for that one moment when they ask me a question, I might hurt something. So presence is key. You also need to teach students presence also. I don't want you thinking about what happened at lunch or what that test is coming up. Let's be here and now. Let's create something here and now. And the last one, number 5, move. Movement's important. When I'm an improver on a stage, I create a scene. I can't build a set. I have to create a scene. I have to move around. It gets the energy flowing. Same with the classroom. My classroom's set up so that I can weave in and out of sets of students and talk to them. I have microwaves and puppets and everything all over the place, so that when I move, I can pull up something and encourage them to kind of think creatively with me as I'm teaching a lesson.